Hey y'all, it's Asturias, and today I'm going to talk about Fulbright. And that's the program I'm doing here in Germany. And today I actually have, obviously, someone else here. This is Allison.
Hi.
She's my roommate and also doing Fulbright here in Germany. And we just got lucky enough to be close enough where our schools are to be able to live together. So, we both had different experiences with our schools and with applying to the program. So I figured having someone else here with a different perspective on the same country would be a good idea. So we're going to talk about the application process, how it all worked, and then what it was like to get to the country, get in contact with the school, and work at our respective schools. And so this is not just Fulbright, it's Fulbright ETA, so English Teaching Assistantship. So it's a little bit different than like a research grant or something like that. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong video.
Good idea.
Can't really help you there. So let's start with, well, first of all, we're in Germany, and talk about the application process. So I applied with my school, like through my school, which is something you can do with your university. Allison did not.
No.
So you just want to talk about a little bit like what was the process like to apply to Fulbright?
Yeah. Okay, so I was gonna go through my school, but I'm a procrastinator. So I didn't make the deadline for it, and I emailed the lady in charge, and she said that it wouldn't hurt my chances if I didn't go through the school. So I was like, whatever, that gives me an extra month to write
your application. So
yeah.
when did you start the application process?
Okay, so I got my letters of rec. The application was due like October 10th or something. I got my letters of rec in September, and those were all done. I just hadn't written any of the essay. There's two, right?
There's 2 essays you have to write, correct? Yeah. So you just started the process in September?
Yes.
And all you had to do was just get your 3 letters of recommendation.
Yes.
And then
my transcripts, which was super easy and took like an hour.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, so I had my letters of rec, which one was from my German teacher, another from another teacher, and then one from like a family friend who knows me super well. And then like 2 days before it was due, because as I said, I'm a huge procrastinator, I just took the day and I wrote everything and turned it in, and then fingers crossed, waited for the answer. So yeah, mine was a little bit more sporadic. I mean, I wouldn't recommend you do it this way, but it worked out for me. Yeah.
So you applied the year you graduated?
Yeah.
You had already graduated and then you applied, correct?
Yeah, so I could still go through my school. I just didn't, even though I'd already graduated, but I graduated in May, and then that October of 2019 was when the application was due.
Okay, so I applied in the fall of my senior year, so before I graduated, which is a little bit different.
Because we are a year apart.
Yes, we are. Okay, and so I applied during my senior year, and it was also kind of chaotic, like Allison's, but for a different reason. So I had thought about it, but I thought I wanted to go to I didn't even think I wanted to go to grad school. I thought I wanted to work after school. And this was before the pandemic hit both of us, so
LOL.
So it was like, it might be a little bit different now, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and my German professor had told me, oh, you should try this, and it was September of my senior year, and I was like, oh yeah, I think I'd be interested in doing this, and she was like, oh, you're supposed to be done with the application for the school by now, because the way it works with your school usually is that the school has a deadline in like the month before it's actually due, so that way they know you're going to be completely done by October deadline. And the school process is kind of complicated. So the way I did it was, and it might be similar in other schools, but this is Southwestern University. I had to go have an interview after being recommended by my German professor. I had to have an interview with the Fulbright liaison on campus to make sure that I was the right stuff to like even put the process of the application through with the school. And then after that, I had to select 3 members of staff or faculty of the school to be my panel, to basically be my letters of rec and also just check all of my work and interview me and make sure I knew what I wanted to get into with this. And then after I chose them, we had a meeting and we kind of laid out the foundation of how I wanted to present myself to Fulbright and what was like important, what was unique about me, why I wanted to go to Germany, all of that stuff. And the people that I selected were my physics advisor, because I'm a physics and German double major, or I was, and then my German professor, who was my advisor, and then a sort of like career specialist on campus that was recommended to me to be part of it, and I knew her sort of. And so that was my panel, along with the Fulbright liaison on campus, who was like an English professor at the time. And so after like meetings with them, then I would go back and I would start writing my 2 papers that you have to write. And then I would submit them to my panel. They would go over them, put in edits, and then send them back to me. Then I would rewrite, and this happened a couple of times. I kept meeting with them to make sure I was on the right path. And this was all happening within a couple of weeks because the deadline's in October. And so it felt like I was like racing to the finish. I like got it all done, got it all submitted. They put the recommendations in, like it was all there. I didn't feel like I had that much of a chance, but then we both got it.
Here we are.
Here we are. So that's kind of the application process, the difference. So you don't have to go through school, but
it definitely
in some ways
helps.
it makes it easier almost, because you're not on your own and you get direction. Like I really emphasized my science part of my learning and like how I would teach and how I would approach teaching the students. And like that was really a strategy that I came up with my panel. I don't think I would have been able to come up with that on my own. So I can think it'd be really helpful to have a panel, but also it's almost like, I don't know, more relaxed to not go through your school because
I went in very blind.
Yeah.
But if you're a kind of person who like feels comfortable or like prefers to get feedback, I mean, I think that you should probably go through your school if you can.
Yes.
I'm
not sure how that looks like to the Fulbright selection committee, like the difference either. I'm sure there is some sort of difference having your school backing you and not having your school backing you. I'm not really sure, but those are the 2 sides of that. And then we got to Germany. So we didn't just get to Germany. We were told that we got it, and then the pandemic was like,
happening.
No.
Yeah.
They canceled the entire year. They sent people home. So they told us in I got to like in late March?
Yeah, I want to say April or March.
Something like that. And I remember we were in the pandemic, and I was like really excited about it, but I was like, I don't know if it'll happen because it's supposed to happen this fall. And then we were told
back when we were still feeling optimistic about the pandemic ending.
Like the summer, it'll be over by summer.
Yeah,
it'll be a couple weeks. And then they said that they were canceling it for the year, and then there was so much back and forth about whether or not they were going to allow us to do it the next year, because they never ever allow, before this happened, for someone to defer. That just wasn't a thing in Fulbright. You weren't allowed to do that. You had to reapply. Yeah. So this was the first year they allowed us to defer to the next year because we just no one could go to Germany. No one could travel.
And first they told us November of 2020, right? And then
and they were like January of 2021.
Yeah, it just kept being pushed off.
Yeah, it was really stressful, I think, for a lot of people, because you have to get a job or you have to do something. You couldn't just sit around and wait for Fulbright to happen. So I was very fortunate to like have a job where I could just work and then leave, and like with no real big consequences. And like I was living with my parents, so I didn't have to worry about that kind of thing. But I know a lot of people like didn't.
Yeah,
they couldn't go because they had to start their lives.
Trying to find a subletter and then finding out I didn't need a subletter because I was going to be in my apartment for another 6 months or so.
Yeah,
so very stressful.
Very stressful time. And then on top of all that, we're wondering like, what is it going to be like when we get here? And that was chaotic in itself, because they had us do. We had like this meetings that we had to do online, and I thought it would be like prepping me for like what it would be like when we got there, how we'd find housing, and I don't know about you, but I felt like I was under the assumption that my school that I would be assigned to would help me with housing. Like that's kind of the impression they gave in the meetings. I don't know if you had the same.
I honestly don't even remember.
No.
I don't even remember. The meetings were like once every 2 months.
Yeah.
And
one of them was just straight up in German, which
you don't even,
it was a lot, because a lot of people, they're just, for Germany and for other like specific countries, you have to have a certain amount of language ability, and that's part of your application process. You have to prove it either through a test or through someone vouching for you that knows the language. Like my German professor just vouched for me that I was like an intermediate level or something like that.
Same. But there's definitely a difference between handling German and getting 2 hours of information about moving to a foreign country all in that language.
In a different language. Yeah, that
very
was
unhelpful.
That was stressful, because I felt like I just wasn't prepared, because I was like, oh no, I don't know the language well enough. I'm not going to be able to handle this. So that was very stressful. And then finally, it was like we knew we were actually going to go to Germany and when we were going to go, and that we needed to find a house. And then they don't assign you your school until like way too late, in my opinion, because I didn't hear until I think mid-July, and I was supposed to be there September 6th.
Yeah.
So you had to find housing in that time, and you weren't gonna get paid. We didn't get paid until I think almost October.
Yeah. And they tell you your region earlier, but your region is literally like
a state,
4 major
usually.
Cities are within. Like you have no idea where you're gonna be.
Right. So so I was told the state I was gonna be in, and I'm not living in the state that my school's in, even because of the placement and where it is. So that didn't really tell me anything about it. And when I was finally given my school, they weren't helpful in finding a place to live. And even worse for our situation is both of our schools, the area that it's in, were affected by the floods.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even find apartments because either they were flooded or people had moved into the other apartments because they lost their homes. And Fulbright was really like they weren't very helpful at all with anything after you get to the country. Like we were pretty much just on our own. I was in an Airbnb for 2 weeks, trying to find a place to live. The first place ended up being a scam that we were trying to live together the whole time.
And thank God, because what a horrible location it would have turned out to be.
It was bad. So we're both commuting to our schools and living in a city, but to try and find it, we tried to reach out to our schools. They said, oh, here's some websites of apartments, like hunting websites to go on. And we were having to like navigate it all in a foreign language. We were having to message these people in a foreign language. And then like going through the city when we finally got here and like touring these apartments, and some of them were kind of sketchy. Like even the apartment that we ended up in, the person like
felt sketchy at the time.
It felt sketchy, and he didn't show up the first meeting. So it's very, very stressful. And one of the biggest things that was hard was that to get an apartment in Germany, you need to have a bank account to be able to pay. But to get a bank account, you have to have an address, which means you have to have an apartment. So it's kind of like you're in this like loop of like, okay, well, all you really have is this piece of paper from Fulbright saying that I have a job here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have money coming in. And that's what they want to see. So it's really just like a shot of luck if you get a place to live and get a landlord that is willing to accept that. All you have is that. And our landlord was great about it because we didn't have the money. We didn't have enough cash.
Yeah.
We had to move in the next day.
We like paid for her room so we could put our stuff here.
Yep.
Because our ATMs, our banks would only let us take out so much money at a time
so
per day.
So we could only get one room first, and then we came back, gave him more money for the second room, and then we weren't even able to finish paying him until the third day.
Meanwhile, we're like homeless.
Yes. So it was really, really chaotic, and like I'm really glad I didn't have to do it alone. So that was the process of actually getting to the country, and now that there's a whole process of getting to the school. Allison, you want to go first? How did you get connected to the school?
So my the person in charge of
your contact.
Yeah, my contact emailed me and, like Claire said, gave me advice about housing, but just basically that I should live in Bonn instead of in the town.
which is the
where
city.
my school is. Yeah.
So we're in a city that's about an hour from both of our schools.
Yeah, I just reread the email. She says it's like 25 minutes away. Yeah, by car. But I don't have a car, so it's more like an hour. But that's fine. I'm very happy I live in the city instead of in that little town. Just because there's so much more to do and people to meet. But yeah, so she contacted me and we were in like kind of correspondence over email. But basically the day after I got here, I just like went in, blindly tried to find the teacher's lounge, like asked someone where my mentor may be, met her. It was very casual. And she set me up with a class to just like go with to all of their classes, or a grade to go with to every class for a week. And then they got me a plan for actual English classes, because that first week I was just like basically going to PE with them and like nonsense. But yeah, she's great, but I feel like they just don't have like a strong idea of what we really are there for. And you kind of have to like lead them with what you know you're there for. So it's some meeting in the middle, some awkward miscommunications. But overall, that aspect was honestly easier than
the rest of
finding a place to live and such.
Yeah.
At least they have like sympathy for the fact that we're foreigners.
Yes. Yeah, that has been nice. My setup was I feel like it was a little more structured because I went to the school. At first I video chatted with my mentor teacher first, and then she invited me to come to the school the week before I started just to like sit in on one of her classes and like kind of get a layout for where the teacher's lounge was, where everything was. But it was a little more complicated because she like told me how to get to the school, and mine is on an island that has to take a ferry, so that was really stressful. I was like, where's this boat? I'm trying to, and I had to like ask a teacher that was like walking past me. I was like, are you going to Nunavut? And she was like, oh yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. But then she actually met me on the boat, which she didn't tell me she was going to do. And then we like went and did that all, and then pretty much she just gave me my like lesson plan for the week, all the classes I was gonna go to. And like Allison, like I feel like every teacher has a different idea of what you're there for. So some teachers have me just take half the class and do a project with them or talk to them, or take a section of kids and talk to them. Or some teachers just have me sit in the class in case they need help with something. Or some other teachers have me walk around the class while they're doing something and help them and like talk to them individually in their little groups and figure out if I can help them with anything. So but I know I posted something about making this video, and I did get a couple of questions, and one of them was like, the stipend, is the stipend like enough? Yes and no. So we're in a pretty expensive apartment. Okay, we get 850 euros a month individually, like separately, and oh God. They say you're supposed to find an apartment for like around 250 to 300 euros a month. That's really hard, especially in a big city. Like even the tiny apartment in someone's basement that was in the middle of nowhere, Germany, that one of my teachers recommended was 450, I think, a month, and there was no perks to it. Like it was in the middle of nowhere, there was no one around, it was in a basement, I didn't have my own like anything. Whereas like this one's a 600 euro a month, and it's in the city and has perks. So if we were on what they expected us to be with rental stuff, we would have so much money.
Yeah.
And as it stands now, we have enough money.
Yeah, I haven't dipped into my savings yet.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. But the other problem with the stipend and everything and the money issue is that you have to have at least like $2,000 to $3,000 like saved up to come here, because you don't get paid until like October, and you have to pay for your flight by yourself before they'll pay you back for it. You have to pay for if you like say an Airbnb or a hotel or something like we had to before we found a place to live, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for your down payment for the apartment, which was I think $1,200 each, something like that. It was 2 months of rent. And then you have to pay the first month of rent. So that was a lot of money, and that wasn't even including the food and the train tickets to like get to the city and all of that kind of stuff. So that's a really like big thing. Like you have to have a lot of money and like privilege to be able to even come here.
And little things like if you don't have a bank account and you're using your American bank, sometimes there's insane
Charges.
withdrawal fees.
Yeah. And there's just so many like hoops you have to jump through. And like Allison, for example, like her phone wasn't allowed, like it wouldn't let the card, like what's it called?
SIM card.
The SIM card, it
yeah.
wouldn't let it change it. So she had to resort to like getting a new
I have 2 phones.
A new phone, like an iPhone 7, just to have a German number.
Yeah.
Which you really need to have a bank account, which is just like, it's just so many things. So yes, it is enough, but I wish we had gotten it earlier, or at least some of it earlier, because you do get an amount of money for the travel stipend and that kind of stuff. I wish we had gotten that.
I also think if they expect us to only pay 1/3 of our stipend in an apartment, like $200, they should be way more helpful. Yeah. Like, because of this flood, which like was unforeseen, obviously, but like they should have had a lot of more sympathy about it, because 630 euros is a lot.
It's a lot. And thankfully, if you do have some like an apartment that is more than what they expect, they will subsidize it a little bit. So we're getting a little bit more money, like 100 euros more a month because of that. But that's nothing. It's like we're being paid beans, as you always say. So it is enough, but it isn't. And you just really have to budget. And it also doesn't really help like if you want to travel. Deutsche Bahn is kind of expensive to go anywhere, so it's not the greatest. One of the other questions I got was, is it like hard or easy to like make friends and stuff here? And I think the pandemic complicates everything. So I think it would have been a lot easier to make friends here if it hadn't been for the pandemic, because I feel like when we do go out, we're a lot more hesitant. To be able to make friends and like to talk to people and that kind of thing.
Everyone's wearing a mask.
It's hard. But we have been able to make some friends, mostly international people though, because they're also here through some similar programs, or they're on the same program as us, or something like that.
And actively looking for friends.
Exactly. So it's a lot harder to find people that are just here in the community, because you don't really want to join a gym and, you know, maybe come in contact with COVID. You don't really want to join clubs because there's not meeting in person. It's all virtual. Like it's been really difficult, but thankfully we have been able to like find quite a few people that we like vibe with here in the area, and like further out too we can go visit. And
we're in a big city. I can't imagine people who are in like tiny towns.
Right, exactly. Like we have a friend that's south of here, and she's in a smaller town, and I know she is like getting like kind of like she has a couple of friends, but when you know 2 friends are busy, like how you get lonely. So it's been really, really hard. But with that, also connecting with other ETAs was weirdly easy. I don't even know who started the group chat. I think it was like so you have a Fulbrighter network once you are accepted into the program and you start. So you can post on there like, hey, all the people that are in that year in like Germany, they're all going to be on the same page, and so you can post on that page and say, hey, this is where I'm going to be. Is anyone in that area? And someone started a group chat on WhatsApp, and so we've been able to connect with so many people because everybody's on that group chat, and so it's like
so many subgroup chats.
So many subgroup, like for the States, or like if people are interested in going skiing, they made a group chat. So
we should join that.
We should, yeah. But yeah, so that has been surprisingly easy, and finding the people that you're interested in. I think the hardest part was just that we weren't able to meet in person like you normally do in Fulbright. You're supposed to have a meeting, I think, at the beginning of the year where you all meet each other and like get a lay of the land, which is virtual for us this year. And then there was supposed to be something in like May in Berlin, and that just got canceled because of COVID. So I think in future years when COVID is over, maybe it'll be a lot easier to connect with other people. The only reason we've met some people is because there was some alumni conference and it happened to be in our city, and we were able to meet some other Fulbrighters that way. But otherwise, it's just been like through the app, people that are around us, or like knowing people from before, which Allison knows like 3 or
Weirdly,
4 Fulbrighters, like just from life before this. So, but yeah, it's a rewarding experience. I am loving my time here.
Growing experience for sure.
Yes, and it's very challenging, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but it is difficult, and it's not what I expected, I think. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah, it's not what I expected at all. So, and it wasn't it was. I thought the most challenging part of it would be the actual teaching, and like what we're here to do, but that's really been the easiest part for me. Like
12 hours a week.
It's 12 hours a week. Oh yeah, so Germany is different. Other countries have different hours, but for ETAs in Germany, you are supposed to be working 12 hours a week in the school. Other countries have more or less, but that's what we're doing. But it's been rewarding.
I was like definitely most worried about just the job aspect of it all.
And that's been the easiest part. Everything else has been a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But if you have any more questions about the Fulbright Experience, Germany, anything like that, put them in the comments below. I appreciate the person who commented some questions on my post on Reddit. I'll be posting this video there so people can see it. But yeah, any closing thoughts about Fulbright in Germany so far? We're midway through.
Good luck with your application, viewer.
Yeah, it's a little late for application advice, I realized as I'm posting this, but I wanted to do it like halfway through our time here, so we give like a good example. Because it's January, it's bleak, it's like the worst time to be here after the holidays. It's sad. But I wanted to give like a little Fulbright thing. So, okay, with that, yeah, if you like videos like this, hit the like button.
Subscribe, baby.
Subscribe if you want. And that's what we're into this week.